Reese Cole stood on the landing platform of Viridian 7's Frontier Station, the humid air heavy with the scent of alien blooms. He watched the dense jungle canopy sway under a pale green sky, listening for the faint signal that had puzzled Station scientists for days. The signal came at irregular intervals, a soft pulse buried beneath the static of routine traffic. When it suddenly spiked, Reese felt a tightening in his chest, as if the forest itself had called to him. He adjusted his comm unit and signaled to the team dot inside the small shuttle. Lieutenant Vera, who checked her scanner again, "Signal strength is rising fast," she said, her voice steady. A handful of armed guards and medics readied their gear. Reese nodded and led the way onto the forest floor. The ground was soft with fallen leaves that glowed faintly under bioluminescent fungi. Each step echoed through the silent undergrowth, broken only by distant calls of unknown creatures. After 20 minutes of careful advance, the team reached a clearing where the signal blared through their headsets. At the center lay a woman unlike any they had seen. Her skin was smooth and pale, with faint iridescent streaks that caught the light. Dark hair framed her face, and her limbs bore fresh wounds. She lay on her side, breathing shallowly, her chest rising with effort. The medics hurried forward, but Reese held up his hand. He knelt beside her and paused, taking in a slow breath. Almost at once, a calm washed over him. The chatter in his mind quieted, replaced by a gentle focus. He glanced at his team, seeing their tense faces soften in his presence. His own heartbeat steadied, and he felt connected to something greater than himself. He pressed a gloved hand to the woman's wrist. Her pulse beat weak but steady. "She's alive," one medic murmured. Kneeling on the other side, the medic checked her vitals and whispered a report. Reese crouched lower, brushing a strand of hair from the woman's forehead. Her breathing grew easier as he stayed close. An almost imperceptible scent surrounded her, something earthy and sweet, like fresh rain on warm soil. It was comforting, and he felt drawn to it even as he fought to remain alert. Suddenly, the woman's eyes fluttered open. They were large and dark, reflecting moonlight even in the dim clearing. She looked at Reese with a mixture of fear and relief. Her lips moved, forming a single word. "Home," she whispered, her voice soft and melodic. The word hung in the air, carrying a depth of longing that tugged at Reese's heart. The medics sprang into action, lifting the woman onto a portable stretcher. Reese rose and signaled to the guards, "Secure perimeter," he ordered. The guards fanned out, weapons at the ready, scanning the tree line for threats. Reese stayed close to the stretcher as the medics worked quickly to stabilize her injuries. One deep gash on her shoulder was wrapped with a field dressing, and the medic administered a local anesthetic. Through it all, the woman's gaze never left. Reese stopped back at the station's medical bay. Sheets of sterile white light bathed the room. Reese watched from the doorway as doctors and nurses moved around the woman, now resting on a narrow bed. Monitors beeped softly, showing her vital signs. Reese slipped off his helmet and ran a hand through his hair. Despite the bustle, the calm he had felt in the clearing lingered, a quiet anchor in his mind. Dr. Ambrose approached him. "Captain Cole, she's stable for now," the doctor said, voice low. "We'll run full scans and tests, but her biology is unlike anything in our database." Reese nodded. "Her scent, I felt it back there. It did something to me." Ambrose raised an eyebrow. "Scent?" Reese closed his eyes, recalling the moment. "It was soothing. It made me feel safe, like I belonged somewhere." Ambrose glanced toward the bed. "We'll collect samples once she's conscious. For now, rest and sleep seem best for her." As Reese turned to leave, he paused by the bed. The woman stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She looked into his face, confusion and hope flickering in her gaze. Reese offered a gentle nod. "You're safe here," he said quietly. She blinked and whispered again, "Home." Later that night, Reese walked the station's observation deck, staring out at the distant stars. He thought of the woman Elisra, as the medics had tentatively named her after the signal's code fragments. He wondered what brought her to this world, and why her scent had such power over him. A soft breeze ruffled his uniform, carrying the faintest hint of something sweet and alien. Reese closed his eyes and inhaled. In that moment, he knew his life had changed. Viridian 7 held new mysteries, and at its heart was an alien who called him home. In the cold expanse of space, he had found something unexpected, a bond that would shape the fate of both worlds. The frontier station felt less like the edge of humanity's reach, and more like the beginning of something extraordinary. As the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Reese returned to his quarters, thoughts heavy with questions. Who was Elisra? What danger did she face? And why did he feel so drawn to her scent? Tomorrow, he would seek answers. For now, he would rest his mind touching the edge of a new frontier where scent and soul intertwined. After a long night, Reese Cole made his way back to the medical bay. The corridor lights glowed softly, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Elisra lay on the bed, eyes closed, her breathing even and calm. The faint scent he had sensed in the jungle hovered in the air, mingling with the sterile smell of the station. It made him feel grounded, focused, and oddly peaceful. Dr. Ambrose and Lieutenant Vera, who stood by the monitors, Reese approached quietly. How is she? He asked. Ambrose glanced at the readouts. Stable, he said. Her wounds are healing faster than human biology allows. We've never seen such rapid cell regeneration. Vera, who added, and her vital signs remain strong. Even under sedation, Reese nodded, his mind drifting to the bond he felt. He knelt beside Elisra and inhaled softly. The scent was richer now, like sweet rain on warm stone. It eased the weariness in his bones. As the sedative wore off, Elisra's eyelids fluttered. She opened them and looked around, confusion in her dark eyes. Reese offered a gentle smile. You're safe, he said, his voice calm. She lifted a hand toward him, but hesitated, her lips parted, as if searching for words. The medics gave her privacy and stepped back. Reese sat on a nearby stool, keeping his distance but letting her feel his presence. Elisra's breathing quickened. She sat up slowly, wincing at the strain. Reese reached out and steadied her shoulder. The contact brought a wave of calm over her. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, as if the air itself soothed her pain. He realized she was reacting to his scent again. He smelled of synthetic fiber, recycled air, and something more, the hint of earth and metal that came from him being near her. She whispered, Why do I feel peace? Reese looked into her eyes. I don't know yet, he admitted, but I think my presence helps you heal. She studied him, her gaze softening. She tried to speak more, but a medic brought water and a nutrient drink. As she drank, Reese observed her carefully. Each time she smelled him, her vitals seemed to improve. Station scientists arrived with portable scanners. They swarmed around the bed, taking air samples, scanning her skin, and analyzing the environment. One scientist, Drive Raj Verma, held a small vial. Captain Cole, would you mind? He asked. Reese extended his arm, and Dr. Verma rubbed a gauze pad on his skin. Within moments, the scanner indicated elevated pheromone-like compounds. Verma frowned. Her biology emits substances that interact with your pheromones. It's a two-way reaction. Reese's brow furrowed. What does that mean? Verma tapped on a holo display. When she inhales your scent, it triggers a cascade in her neural pathways that accelerates healing and reduces stress. Conversely, exposure to her pheromones enhances your focus and emotional balance. Reese blinked. You mean we complete each other? Verma nodded. At least chemically, yes. Elisra sat up straighter, listening. She reached out and touched the gauze pad in Verma's hand. Home, she said again, softly. Reese's heart tightened. He wondered if she remembered more of her journey. Verma approached with caution. We'd like to run more tests, but only with your permission. Elisra looked at Reese, seeking his guidance. He gave a small nod. We'll help, she agreed, voice full of relief and trust. Over the next hours, the team worked carefully. Elisra allowed scans of her scent glands while Reese provided new samples. Station air filters captured their pheromones and tested reactions on cultured alien cells. Every reading showed extraordinary results. Elisra's wounds closed overnight, leaving only faint scars. Reese noticed his own pulse steadied, and his thoughts felt calmer despite the mounting tension on Viridian 7. Later, Reese escorted Elisa to a small observation room. The windows looked out onto the jungle below. Gentle green light filtered in. Elisa inhaled deeply and smiled. "It reminds me of home," she said. Reese sat beside her. "Tell me about your home," he prompted. She hesitated, then spoke. In broken but clear basic English, "My world is called Elaris. It is forest and water. My people live in harmony with nature." Her voice carried pride and longing. Reese listened, picturing vast emerald canopies and silver rivers. He imagined her people moving through the trees like shadows at sunset. She described ceremonies where scent-guided spiritual healing. Reese realized her gift was sacred on Elaris. It explained why factions might hunt her for power. He squeezed her hand. "We'll protect you," he promised. As days passed, Elisa's strength returned. She walked unassisted through the station halls. Her steps light. Reese escorted her, keeping his uniform near her nostrils so she could breathe him in. Each time, she paused, eyes closing in contentment. A station engineer, Lena, whispered to Reese, "They make quite a pair." Reese smiled. They help each other, but not everyone understood. Talk of a bioweapon in her scent reached station command. Colonel Brennan called Reese to his office. "Captain, intelligence suggests her pheromones can be weaponized," Brennan warned. "We must consider transferring her to Central Research." Reese's jaw tightened. "Colonel, she's more than a weapon. She's a living being who trusts us." Brennan's face was stern. "Orders come from above. Prepare her for transfer." Reese left the office, anger and worry boiling inside. He saw Elisa in the observation room. She looked up with concern. Reese knelt before her. "They want to take you away." Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, "I thought I found home." Reese held her close, inhaling her scent and letting its warmth calm him. "I promise, I'll not let them," he vowed. As twilight fell over Viridian 7, Reese and Elisa stood side by side, united by scent and trust. The station lights dimmed, and they walked into the corridor, ready to face the challenges ahead. Together, they would learn the true power of their bond and discover that the strongest weapon was the connection between two souls. Elisa sat in the small common area of the frontier station, tracing the pattern of light on the floor tiles. Reese stood by the window, arms folded, watching the cargo shuttles land and take off. Both felt the weight of station orders pressing on them. Colonel Brennan had given an official transfer date. In two souls, Elisa would leave for Central Research. The word hung over them like a dark cloud. That night, Reese visited Lieutenant Verhu in the security office. He closed the door and lowered his voice. "We need a plan," he said. Ver glanced at the security feeds showing armed escort teams assembling. "They'll move fast," she said. "We can slip her out during the transfer convoy, but we'll need a distraction." Reese nodded, recalling the old maintenance tunnels beneath the landing pad. "I know the route," he said. "We can use it." Back in her quarters, Elisa practiced slow breathing. She remembered her people's forest ceremonies. Scent had guided her steps through dark woods to safety. Night after night, she reached out with her senses, learning to control the flow of her pheromones. With each breath, she grew steadier, more confident. When Reese entered, she offered a small, calm smile. "I'm ready," she said. He placed a hand on her shoulder and inhaled her scent. It steadied him. On the day of transfer, the station buzzed with activity. Armored transports rolled into the landing bay. Scientists in white coats stood in small clusters, whispering. Elisa wore a simple tunic provided by medical staff. Reese joined her, adjusting his uniform. "Stay close," he told her softly. She looked up and nodded. Her eyes held both fear and trust. They moved as part of the convoy, guarded by 4 armed escorts. Reese and Elisa walked between patrol officers. At the edge of the landing pad, a maintenance crew feigned a routine check on engines. Vera, at her station, cut power to half the bay lights. Alarms blared as sirens echoed. Guards turned in confusion. The convoy halted. In the darkness, Reese grabbed Elisa's hand and led her toward a grated door marked maintenance access. She followed without hesitation. They slipped into the narrow tunnel, the air cool and still. Her heart pounded, but she kept breathing, focusing on the scent bond. Reese's presence soothed her. They moved quickly, guided by faint lights along. The walls dot above them. Shouts and heavy footsteps reverberated. Guards searched the surface. Radios crackling. They called for backup. Down below. Reese guided Elisa through twisted passages until they reached a service hatch near the old cargo shuttle bay. He pried it open, and they climbed out into the shadow of stacked containers. The shuttle bay was empty except for one unmarked vessel. Reese had arranged it with an ally, engineer Lena, who waited inside. Lena gave them a nod from the cockpit. Elisa slipped in first, smiling with relief. Reese climbed in behind her and sealed the hatch. Lena powered up the engines. The shuttle glowed softly under emergency lights. As they lifted, the station's main security team converged on the empty transport platform. Officers scanned the area, weapons drawn. Colonel Brennan's voice came over comms. All units, secure the tunnels. Alarms echoed in every corridor. But Reese and Elisa were already beyond the perimeter. Rising above Viridian 7's landing bay, inside the shuttle, Elisa finally spoke. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Reese reached for her hand. "We're not safe yet," he reminded her. She nodded, wiping a tear. Outside the viewport, the jungle moon receded as they climbed into orbit. The stars stretched ahead, open and vast. Reese set a course for a hidden moon in the nearby star system. It was uninhabited and covered in rocky canyons. There, they could hide and plan their next move. As the shuttle accelerated, Elisa pressed her hand to the wall, breathing deeply. She filled the small cabin with her scent, and Reese inhaled it gratefully. The bond between them felt stronger than ever. They settled into the flight, each lost. In thought, Elisa studied the control panels, learning the shuttle's systems. Reese monitored external sensors for any pursuit. The distant signals of the station faded into static. For the first time since arrival, Elisa smiled fully. She leaned against Reese's shoulder. "You are my home," she whispered. Reese closed his eyes, feeling the truth of her words in every breath. As the hidden moon drew near, they prepared to enter the atmosphere. The shuttle shuddered, then glided through the thin sky, settling into a canyon floor under a pale lavender sky. Reese opened the hatch. Fresh air rushed in, scented faintly of alien minerals. He helped Elisa out. They stood side by side, facing a new world of possibilities. Behind them, the shuttle's engines cooled. Ahead, the canyon stretched into shadowed ridges. No station guards would find them here. Together, they stepped forward into the unknown, bound by scent and courage. Their journey had only begun. Reese and Elisa stepped out of the shuttle into the cool air of the hidden moon. Jagged rocks rose around them, painted in shades of violet under the pale sun. Dusty wind carried the taste of metal and strange minerals. Reese took a cautious step, scanning the land for dangers. Elisa inhaled deeply, her eyes bright with excitement. "This place feels safe," she said softly, "but wild." Reese nodded and offered his hand. Together, they walked toward a narrow canyon floor, leaving the shuttle's hatch open for a quick return if needed. The canyon walls towered overhead, carved by ancient water flows long dried up. Elisa paused and pressed her palm to the stone. "On Elaris, stones speak," she whispered. Reese watched as she closed her eyes and listened. After a moment, she turned to him. "The land remembers paths," she explained. She offered to guide him. He followed her lead, stepping where she showed, trusting her instinct. Each time he smelled her scent close by, he felt steadier and more alive. They ventured deeper into the canyon, the ground dotted with small pools of clear liquid. Silver lichen grew in clusters near the water, glowing faintly in the dim light. Elisa knelt by a pool and dipped her fingers in, tasting the water, fresh. She said with relief. She filled a small flask for later. Reese bent to drink. Directly, the liquid was cool and pure. As he drank, he felt energy surge through him, easing his fatigue. He smiled at Elisa's proud look, walking on. They spotted tracks in the soft soil, three-toed prints that curved toward a rocky ledge. Reese crouched to examine them. These look fresh, he said. Elisa studied the marks. They belong to a Nox beast, she said quietly. Reese's eyes widened. He had heard stories of the creature, a large reptile with armor and scales, and sharp claws. It was known to hunt in packs. Elisa placed a calming hand on his shoulder. We can avoid it if we move now. They pressed on, moving faster as the canyon narrowed. The walls closed in, blocking much of the sky. Wind howled through cracks. Carrying whispers of the past, Reese kept his hand near his sidearm, though he hoped not to use it. Elisa's presence calmed him. Her scent, like rain on warm rock, steadied his nerves. They climbed a small rise and found themselves on a ledge overlooking a valley of spiny shrubs. And rocky OUTC or OPS below, a pair of Nox beasts slunk between the brush, their eyes gleaming in the low light. Reese froze, hard thudding. Elisa held his arm. Stay quiet, she whispered. They watched as the beast sniffed the air and moved on. Elisa guided Reese down a side path, away from the valley. Her steps were sure and light. Reese followed, careful to step where she did. Soon, they lost sight of the beast as they descended to the valley floor. Elisa pointed to tall pillars of stone rising like ancient ruins. Those are sentinel spires, she said. My people built lookout sites here long ago. Reese gazed up. The spires were carved with repeating patterns, worn by time. Between them lay a flat clearing. Elisa led him there. In the center, half buried in sand and gravel, was a circular platform etched with symbols. Elisa knelt by the platform and traced a symbol with her fingertip. This marks a gathering place, she explained. Her voice held awe. Reese crouched beside her. Do you think it still works? She took a breath and closed her eyes. The faintest hum vibrated through the air. The symbols glowed softly under her touch. Reese felt a gentle pulse in his chest, in time with the hum. The ground beneath them trembled lightly. Dust fell from the spires. Reese reached for Elisa's hand. What is happening? He asked. She opened her eyes, filled with wonder. This place awakens for those who share bond, she said. Reese held her scent. The platform's glow brightened. A beam of pale light shot upward, piercing the narrow sky. It bathed them in soft luminescence. Reese and Elisa arose, hand in hand. Bathed in the ancient light, Reese looked at Elisa and felt awe. This is our sanctuary, he said. Elisa smiled, tears in her eyes. In our path, she replied. The light faded slowly, leaving the symbols warm beneath their feet. Reese knew they had found more than shelter. They had found a home for their bond. As they prepared to rest, the sentinel spires stood silent guard, promising protection and a future where scent and soul could guide them both. Reese and Elisa settled near the base of the sentinel spires, the cool moon air carrying faint echoes of the ancient light they had awakened. Reese gathered small rocks and kindling to start a fire, while Elisa used a broad leaf to fan gentle flames into life. The light danced on the carved stones above them, reminding Reese of the bond they shared and the sanctuary they had found. Elisa knelt beside the fire and held out her hands, letting the heat warm her fingers. She looked at Reese and smiled softly. On Elaris, we would share stories beside water, she said. Reese sat across from her, legs crossed. Tell me one, he invited. Elisa closed her eyes and inhaled his scent, then began. She spoke of a silver lake that reflected to moons, where her people would gather at night. Lanterns of floating pollen drifted across the water, and music rose like wind in the trees. Reese pictured the scene, soft light on still water, voices mixing with the breeze. He felt peace settle around him like a blanket. When Elisa finished, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes shone with memory and hope. As they spoke, Reese glanced up at the jagged rim of the canyon. The sky was a pale lavender, and distant stars blinked above. He felt the tension of pursuit loosen. But he knew the station would not give up easily. Before they left Viridian 7, Colonel Brennan had threatened to send reinforcements. Every moment of safety was borrowed time. Reese rose and gathered his gear. Elisa stood beside him, draping a light cloak over her shoulders. The cloak was woven from shuttle fabric. It smelled faintly of engine oil and metal. But Elisa welcomed even that scent because it came from Rhys. Together, they approached the nearest spire. The carved symbols glowed faintly in the firelight. Rhys unwrapped a small device from his pack. Engineer Lena had fashioned it from shuttle parts. "This will help," he said, showing Elisa the cylinder. "It masks your scent for a little while." Elisa's brow furrowed in concern. "If I cannot scent you, will I feel lost?" she asked. Rhys knelt and held her hands. "Not lost, but safe." He fitted the device into a harness she could wear. Elisa inhaled deeply and then exhaled. The air felt cooler, less weighted by his presence. They tested the device by moving a few paces away. Elisa inhaled again and nodded. "It works," she said softly. Rhys breathed. Noting how her scent had grown faint, he smiled in relief. They were ready to move deeper into the canyon, where the spires made small caverns and alcoves that could hide them. As they walked, Elisa guided Rhys with quiet confidence. She had learned from the stones how to find safe paths. Rhys watched her, marveling at the grace in her steps. Though the device muted her pheromones, he still felt her kindness and calm. Every so often, he touched her hand to remind her he was there. They reached a sweeping arch of stone that opened to a hidden valley. Phosphorescent moss glowed on the walls, casting a ghostly light over a field of low shrubs. Elisa knelt and touched the moss. "Healers use this on Elaris," she explained. She collected a handful in a small pouch. Rhys admired her focus. Her people's knowledge could help them thrive here. Suddenly, a low hum sounded through the valley. Rhys froze and reached for Elisa. "What is that?" he whispered. Elisa's eyes narrowed. She held up a finger and listened. The hum grew louder, mechanical and distant. It was not natural moon wind. Rhys's heart pounded. "They found us," he said. Elisa exhaled sharply. She laid a hand on his arm. "We have time," she said. "Follow me." They ducked behind a curved wall of stone as the hum turned into voices over a comm channel. Boots on metal plates rang across the plain. Rhys peered over the wall and saw small hover pods sweeping the field below, lights piercing the gloom. Station security forces had come to search the canyon. Elisara whispered, "Stay low." She guided Rhys through a narrow crevice just wide enough for two. The space was cool and damp, lined with the glowing moss. They moved swiftly, careful not to disturb the damp ground. Overhead, they heard the hover pods scan the area, their search beams cutting through the dark. The crevice opened into a larger cavern where pools of water reflected the moss's glow. Rhys and Elisa paused, catching their breath. The water's surface rippled with distant echoes of pursuit. Elisa knelt and filled a container with water. "Drink," she offered. Rhys took it gratefully. The liquid tasted faintly of moving minerals and moss. It refreshed him instantly. They crouched by the water's edge. Rhys looked at Elisa with determination. "We can't run forever," he said. "We need allies." Elisa nodded. "The sentinel spires respond to those who share bond." She said, "We must awaken the others." Rhys's eyes widened. "There are more." Elisa smiled. "A network of sanctuaries. If we reach them, we can call for help." Rhys felt hope rise. Together, they would rally the ancient guardians and protect Elisa's home, and their bond would guide them. As the hoverpod's lights faded in the valley beyond, Rhys and Elisa pressed forward into the cavern's darkness, hand in hand, ready to awaken the next sanctuary and face the challenge of their pursuers with ancient power at their side. Rhys and Elisa moved deeper into the cavern, their footsteps echoing softly off wet stone walls. The faint glow of phosphorescent moss guided their way, and Elisa paused now and then to let her senses search for the next sentinel spire. Rhys kept close, his hand brushing hers to steady her when the path narrowed. Each breath he took carried a hint of her masked scent device, which reminded him of their shared purpose. Despite the darkness, he felt calm with Elisa by his side. Somewhere ahead lay the second sanctuary, a place of ancient power that could help them stand against the station's forces. They followed a winding tunnel that sloped downward toward a subterranean lake. The air grew cooler and damp, and droplets of water fell like soft rain from low-hanging stalactites. Reese helped Elysra over slick stones and across shallow pools. At one point, a sudden shimmer in the water startled them both. A school of small, luminescent fish darted away as they approached. Elysra smiled at the sight. On Elaris, she said quietly, "Water is life and memory." Reese nodded, feeling a new layer of understanding between them. He realized that these creatures, too, were part of the moon's hidden beauty, waiting to be discovered by those who cared to look. At the lake's far edge, they found a circle of tall stone pillars carved with the same ancient symbols as before. The pillars rose straight from the water, forming a ring around a central column etched with grooves that caught the moss's glow. Elysra knelt on a smooth stone, reaching out to touch the carvings. Reese joined her, placing a hand on the pillar's base. Together, they inhaled deeply. A low hum began, growing stronger with each breath. The water around them rippled, and the pillar's carvings brightened, tracing lines of pale light across the stone. Elysra closed her eyes and whispered words in her native tongue, guiding the energy that stirred beneath the carvings. Reese felt warmth spread from the pillar into his fingertips and up his arm. The hum swelled into a gentle vibration that resonated through the cavern. As the light reached its peak, the central column shifted, revealing a hidden alcove. Inside lay a crystal prism suspended in midair, glowing with soft white light. Reese watched it float, amazed by the silent power held within. Elysra smiled, tears at the corners of her eyes, and touched the prism gently. The moment her fingers brushed the crystal, a projection of stars and lines filled the cavern's air. It formed a three-dimensional map of the Sentinel network across the moon's surface. Points of light marked each sanctuary, connected by glowing lines that pulsed like arteries of energy. Reese gasped as he saw how why sites lay hidden in remote canyons, under frozen plains, and even deep beneath other lakes. Elysra spoke softly, translating the symbols she knew from childhood. "Each site holds power to protect and heal," she said. "We must awaken them all to build a shield." Reese studied the map, feeling the weight of their mission settle on his shoulders. He reached for Elysra's hand and held it tightly. "We can do this," he said, voice steady. "We will awaken every sanctuary." Elysra nodded, her smile bright despite the challenge ahead. They memorized the nearest points on the map and chose their next destination. Outside the cavern, distant echoes told them the station's search crews still combed the valley. Reese squeezed Elysra's hand. "They'll find us sooner or later," he warned. She met his gaze with calm determination. "We'll be ready." They rose from the pool and took one last look at the floating prism. Elysra touched its surface, and the light dimmed, slipping back into the crystal. The hidden alcove closed behind them, sealing the map away for future use. Retracing their steps, they emerged under the Sentinel spires, where the moon's pale sky stretched above jagged rocks. Reese checked their gear, refitted the scent-masking device, and looked at Elysra with a fierce protectiveness. Together, they set off toward the next sanctuary, following the paths shown by ancient stones and guided by the bond of scent and soul. Their journey was far from over, but with each awakened sight, their hope and their strength grew. Under the pale lavender sky, Reese and Elysra stood on a rocky ridge overlooking the valley below. The hidden sanctuaries they had awakened glowed softly like distant beacons. Each point of light marked a site alive with ancient power. They felt the network hum beneath their feet, a web of protection woven by stone and memory. Reese inhaled deeply, letting Elysra's scent now gently mask fill his senses. He felt steady and calm, ready for the final step. Elysra traced a fingertip on a carved symbol etched into the ridge. "The last site is near," she said in her soft voice. Reese leaned close, studying the worn grooves. Together, they read the directions etched long ago. Their next destination lay across the canyon, where a natural arch rose like a gateway. They gathered their gear and began the climb down. Careful on the loose stones dot as they descended, the wind carried faint echoes of mechanical hums. From the valley floor, They saw the station's search hover pods passing over the lower spires. Bright beams of light swept the terrain. Reese's grip tightened on his sidearm. Though he hoped not to use it, Elisa placed a hand on his arm. "They cannot cross into Sanctuary," she whispered. "The stones will protect us." Reese nodded, trusting her ancient wisdom. They crossed the canyon rim and reached the arch. Beneath it lay a shallow pool of water, its surface smooth as glass. The arch itself was carved with sharp angles, each facet catching the light of the nearby sanctuaries. Elisa knelt on the ground and placed both hands in the water. Reese joined her, offering support. They inhaled together and listened to the pool's quiet song. Slowly, the water glowed from beneath their palms. Ripples spread outward, touching the pool's edge. The arch began to hum, its carvings pulsing in time with the water's light. Reese felt warmth spread through his chest. Elisa closed her eyes and spoke in the old tongue of Elaris. Reese could not understand her words, but he felt their meaning: hope, unity, protection. Suddenly, a beam of white light shot through the arch, arching across the sky like a bridge of stars. The hover pods in the valley stopped mid-scan as their sensors detected interference. The sanctuary network responded, creating a field that masked the moon's surface. The searchlights faded, and the pods turned away, unable to locate their targets. Reese watched as the station's forces retreated, their engines sputtering as the protective field broke their signals. Elisa opened her eyes and smiled. Tears glistened on her cheeks. "We did it," she said softly. Reese exhaled, relief flooding through him. He reached for her hand and held it tight. Together, they had awakened all 7 sanctuaries. The moon's ancient guardians now stood, ready to defend them. As dusk fell, the twin moons of the system rose above the arch. Their pale glow mixed with the sanctuary's light, painting the valley in soft silver and green. Elisa stepped through the arch and turned to Reese. "This is a new beginning," she said. He nodded, his heart full. "We have created a home here," he replied, "and we will protect it." They returned to the ridge where they first landed. The sentinel spires stood silent guard around them. Reese unpacked a small device from his pack, a communicator patched to station frequencies. He keyed in a command. The device sent a clear message. Elisa was safe. Her actions had protected her people, and Reese would not allow harm to come to her. He pressed send. Moments later, the communicator crackled. Colonel Brennan's voice came through, firm but respectful. "Captain Cole, we detect no hostile signals. Your subject is under our protection. We will withdraw and study the sanctuaries from orbit. No further action will be taken." Reese exhaled and smiled at Elisa. She drew a deep breath and released it. Her scent, soft and natural, wove through the air, carrying with it promise and peace. The station ships appeared overhead, silent in the sky. They hovered for a moment, then slipped into warp lanes. One by one, Elisa watched them go, her eyes bright. "They leave us in peace," she said. Reese wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "They will not forget," he replied, "and they will think twice before they challenge this place again." That night, Reese and Elisa sat by a fire they had built near the arch. The glow of the sanctuaries painted their faces in gentle light. Elisa leaned against Reese, her head on his shoulder. He held her close, breathing in her scent and feeling its calm strength. "Tell me what happens next," Reese said quietly. Elisa smiled and began to describe the future she dreamed of, rebuilding her people's homeworld, sharing the sanctuary network's gift with others, and forging a lasting bond between humans and Elaris. Reese listened, his heart full of hope. He knew that together they could face any challenge. As the fire crackled, the sentinel spires glowed like silent sentinels of hope. The 7 sanctuaries stood ready, their power awakened by 2 souls bound by scent and courage. In the quiet of the hidden moon, Reese and Elisa found not only safety, but a new beginning, one that would shape the future of both their worlds.